Let's get started. We have a lot to talk about today. My name is Ashley Faber and I lead product marketing here at Klara. I'm really excited about today's topic, which is focused on setting up a contactless patient experience that actually helps your practice grow. So while all the regulations and the safety measures you need to think about can seem super overwhelming and potentially frustrating as well, we're here to provide you with the positive side of all of these things, which is how you can really use this moment to drive lasting change in your practice. And your host today is Simon Bolz, the co-founder and co-CEO of Klara.
Hi,
Simon,
everyone.
I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Simon. I'm one of the two founders here at Klara and co-CEO. I'm looking forward to this webinar.
Great. Thanks, Simon. So within the next 40 minutes or so, and if you were with us in last week's session, you know that we got a little excited and went over a bit. So we'll try to do our best to stay within 40 minutes this time. Our goal is to cover all aspects of the contactless patient experience. So first, why you should consider a contactless experience, what it actually looks like at your office, how to prepare your office for contactless care, how to combat patient fears and still create a personalized and welcoming experience at the same time. And then we'll finish with a live Q&A. So please feel free to add questions to the Q&A box or in the chat throughout the session. If something pops in your head, feel free to put it in there and we will either answer it as we go if it makes sense, or we'll just save it for the end of the session during the designated time. And just a final housekeeping item, we'll send everyone who registered the recording and the slides. So just so you know, you'll get those things to your inbox and don't need to worry about doing crazy notes and screenshots and whatnot. So let's kick it off with a poll question. We just want to keep this presentation today interactive, just like last week. So a quick poll: has your practice reopened for elective procedures and/or well visits? Yes. Not yet, but you're offering telemedicine, or not yet, but you're not offering telemedicine either. Just take a minute to give us an idea. And this is all anonymous, so don't worry, we're not collecting this data or anything.
I see a lot of yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, let's get started. Okay, so I'm gonna be your speaker, and let's start with the first agenda item, which is basically why you should consider a contactless patient experience. So why is contactless patient experience important in a topic at all? And I want to lead you through this. I want to start with talking about that medicine and patient care will look drastically and is starting to look drastically different post-pandemic. We just won't return to the normal way of doing things. And here's a quote from the CEO of Iora Health, who recently said, "We must make radical changes in how we deliver care and put our patient needs first." And this is striking. Thinking we can go back to the crowded waiting room and a full schedule of office visits is simply living in denial. So something has changed. Let's look at some numbers here, or some recent studies we found. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, Iora Health, where the quote from the CEO was from, their practices have seen 80% decrease in the visit volume and a corresponding drop in revenue as well. And a study by the Primary Care Collective found that 89% of clinicians actually report large decreases in patient volume. This chart from the Commonwealth Fund also illustrates the decline in visits following the pandemic. This, of course, is largely due to patient fears around contracting COVID. So it's no surprise that the top priority of patients is safety. And in fact, only 13% of Americans say they'll schedule a routine visit at their doctor's office immediately. So it's up to you to prevent or reduce exposure to COVID-19 and also other viruses or infections, so patients feel safe when they come to your office. The second priority, which patients always had, is convenience. So 80% of patients actually select their providers based on convenience factors alone. And this is above insurance coverage, doctor-nurse conduct, brand reputation, or even quality of care. So 80% of patients' convenience is the number one factor when choosing their doctor. And 96% of all complaints from patients are around customer service and communication issues, both of which factor into the overall convenience. So safety on the one hand and convenience on the other hand. And this is what we call the post-pandemic mindset. So the bottom line and the message here is you need to go contactless. And what contactless means I'm gonna explain you in the next chapter, but this is about the why. Because it will limit exposure to or the spread of COVID-19 and other infections, and make it easy for your patients to be in touch with you, book appointments, have a convenient experience throughout their patient journey. And the great thing is that safety and convenience are not mutually exclusive, but they actually go hand in hand. So I want to talk a little bit more about how. In our new normal, there are two types of visits which are here to stay. There's on the one hand telemedicine, which is pretty contactless and convenient in its nature. There was a great webinar from our own Lawrence last week. It's on demand on our website. You can find it and watch it about telemedicine and how you can make telemedicine work in the long run for your practice. So if you haven't seen it, I really urge you to watch it. And so that's the one side of how patient care works with telemedicine. The other one is in-person visits. And these two are not going to go away. We call them as kind of the hybrid mode. So there's telemedicine and in-person visits. This webinar, this presentation today, we're going to focus on the in-person contactless care, which requires even more care and attention than your telemedicine offering or than what an in-person visit used to be. But before we go into the contactless in-person experience and how it should look like, let's take a look at in-office visits pre-pandemic. On this slide, you see what it looks like from the patient's perspective. So as you know, there's a lot of contacts involved. An insurance card at check-in, sitting in the waiting room with furniture, touching magazines, being in the room with other patients, filling out paperwork, touching pens, touching touchscreens or terminals. Then the actual physical visit with the doctors and the nurse or MA, whoever's treating you, and then also things like swiping your credit card. So this old way of doing things is just not going to work going forward. Sure, we won't always be in the middle of a pandemic, that's hopefully clear, but also patients will not want to return to this time-consuming and inconvenient approach to care that they remember from before COVID. So that was the patient perspective. Now let's look at it from the perspective of you and your staff. So how this process looks from your end. You call patients before the visit for scheduling, reminders or instructions of any type of question. At the time of the visit, you have to collect and verify insurance information, intake, consent forms, and then process the paperwork. Immediately when the patient comes back from the visit, you have to collect payments, schedule follow-up appointments, and give any relevant care instructions right there in the office over the counter. And if patients no-show, you have to call them to follow up. And if they have a follow-up, this whole process starts over again. So what you have here and what you see here is a lot of time spent on the phone and dealing with paperwork. In fact, there are 3 hours wasted per staff member per day playing phone tag and being on unnecessary phone calls. And on the other hand, nearly 50% of physicians' time is spent on paperwork compared to only 27% of the physician's time on actual patient care. So this is just not going to be sustainable for the long term, and it's not going to work in our new reality. Digitizing these workflows with a solution like Klara lets you automate outreach, scheduling, insurance intake, paperwork, removing all those risky touch points and time-consuming tasks we just outlined along the whole patient journey. Maybe you have adopted a digital workflow already with your recent telemedicine solution, but now it's time to carry this in your in-person operations as well. Because the benefits really speak for themselves. Going digital will allow you to offer a better and safer patient experience on the one hand, also increases staff productivity and generate more revenue. And all this while keeping patients safe. After all, happier patients come back, they tell their friends, they give you positive online reviews, and being productive ultimately allows you to see more patients, and more patients means more revenue. So this is the first section. And should I do the poll, Ashley? You're muted. Okay.
Oops. We all make that mistake lately. So just the next poll, have you digitized any of your workflows? So yes, but only for our telemedicine offering. Yes, you've digitized all of your workflows, or not yet.
Okay, it's pretty well distributed. Okay, some more coming. Yeah. All right, so we have about 40% yes, but only for our telemedicine offerings. About 40% yes, we've digitized all of our workflows, and 20% not yet.
It's a good mix.
Okay, great. So now we talked about why contactless is important, and what the old kind of experience looks like and why it shouldn't work and doesn't work going forward. Now, this next chapter is about what the contactless patient experience actually looks like. So as we just went over, the contactless patient experience starts with digitizing your patient workflows. So let's break them into 3 categories: pre-visit, during visit, and post-visit. Let's start with the pre-visit workflows. Appointment scheduling is an obvious one. Rather than scheduling appointments over the phone or at the front desk, patients can schedule via an easy text message. And I'm going to show you how this works. This will not only make things more convenient for your staff and also for the patient, but also saves you handing out appointment cards and having a line in the office to schedule the next appointment at the front desk. So I want to show you how this actually looks like quickly in the product. So here on the right, here you see Klara, the product from a staff perspective. All you have to do is click on a patient. You select a template here. You can also just send a message to the patient and craft it yourself, but you select a template, you click an appointment booking request and attach it to a message, and then you just send it to the patient. That easy. The patient now receives a text message with a link, clicks on that link, Klara opens in the mobile browser. The patient doesn't have to download anything, doesn't have to create a login or password, and can just simply book the appointment, pick a reason, pick a location, provider, date and time, and the appointment is booked. And that's how easy it is. So this was appointment scheduling. Another workflow pre-visit is everything leading up to the appointment. So once the appointment is scheduled, you can automate all these administrative pieces. For example, 7 days before the visit, send appointment reminders and let the patient confirm with a simple text. 2 days before the visit, you can send or prompt patients to submit a photo of their insurance card. You can have them fill out intake or consent forms and take a COVID-19 screening questionnaire. The AMA offers great guidance, by the way, on what questions you should ask to screen patients for COVID before they come into your office. And then lastly, 1 day before the visit, or actually also at the same day, send any pre-appointment instructions and remind the patient again. So here again, I want to show you how this works in Klara, especially on the patient side. So let's say Klara Assistant has automatically sent the patient, pre-visit instructions and insurance card requests and also forms, or you've done this manually. The patient receives a text message with a link again, logs into Klara on the phone without downloading an app, and they start uploading the insurance cards, make a photo front and back of the insurance card. This goes into Klara here. They can also click on the telemedicine consent form, for example, or any kind of form you want to have them fill in, and they just sign the form right there. And it's also coming back as a PDF into Klara. So no more paper. And the great thing is if you are integrated with your EHR, you can just export it and push it into the patient chart right there from Klara. So we covered pre-visit now. And on the day or at the visit itself, there's also a lot of workflows we can digitize. So here, for example, you want to instruct your patient to text you when they arrive, and then have them wait in their car. Many people are already doing this, but I wanted to share this practice as well. When you're ready, your front desk sends them a text to come in wearing a mask, of course. Now the patient only sees clinical staff in the exam room. You're wearing PPE gear throughout the whole visit. And when the appointment is done, the patient leaves immediately and receives a text with a link to pay for the treatment electronically, or even schedules a follow-up appointment right there. So now the visit is over. What can you do after the visit? And what workflows can you digitize? That evening, you send care instructions, if it makes sense, with a quick check-in on how they're doing. They can respond right there in Klara and get back to you. One day after the visit, you want to send a quick text survey of their level of satisfaction and ask the patient to leave an online review. And 1 week after the visit, for example, you can have them schedule a follow-up video visit. And you can customize these flows at what point in time you actually want Klara to reach out with what type of message to the patient. And you can customize this based on the specific appointment types in your EHR. So now you have a safer and more convenient experience for in-person visits. And what this means is not only safer patients, but also happier patients. And happier patients mean more patients mean more revenue. Okay, so now we talked about basically how this, what this experience looks like and how you can digitize these workflows. Now, in the next section, I want to shortly touch on how to prepare your office actually to reopen. And most of you have reopened, so this is probably not news to you, but just going through these, maybe you find the one advice here and there which is helpful. So how to prepare your office to reopen. We have basically a 5-point plan. Number 1, thoroughly disinfect and sterilize your space before you reopen. Number 2, keep proper cleaning supplies stocked. People forget about this. 3, clear exam rooms between visits and train your staff on proper cleaning procedures. 4, do COVID screenings of staff daily and send screening questionnaires to all patients before their appointments. As I mentioned in an earlier slide, you can use the AMA's COVID screening questions as a starting point. And then last but not least, set up sanitation stations throughout the office with automatic sanitation dispensers. So this is kind of the 5 biggest topics you should follow. Now, we just went through the digital workflows, but to prepare them with Klara, here's what to do. Number 1, you define your automations, whatever you want to automate and digitize in the workflow with your dedicated Klara Customer Success Manager. So they're here, they know a lot of practices, they've worked with hundreds of different institutions and can give you also advice and best practices. Then you decide which type of appointments will be for telemedicine and which ones will require an in-person office visit. And again, there was a great webinar last week from Lawrence where he specifically talked about this as well, about optimizing which visits you should move into the telemedicine kind of realm and which you should keep in person and how you can optimize the revenue around them. And lastly, you should build time into your schedule to properly clean exam rooms between appointments.
Great, thank you, Simon. So we have another poll here. So if your practice is now open for elective procedures, which I think most of you said yes, have you been getting new in-person bookings? Yes, but not many. Yes, and we're busy, or not yet. I hope these are yeses, but want to hear from the crowd.
Yeah, we have more to go. Yes, and we are busy is leading the pack.
Good.
Yes, but not many is pretty close. Okay, so far we have 0 for not yet. About 60% yes, and we are busy. About 40% yes, but not many.
That's good.
Okay, Then let's continue here. So that all sounds great, but how do you make sure your patients actually know about your precautions and have the necessary confidence to come in again? Because this is also one thing, having everything in place, but the patients don't know about it. And as you've seen the numbers before, like only I think 13% of patients in a recent survey wanted to schedule an in-person visit right after kind of what they've experienced right now. So the insecurity is really high, and you have to make sure that your patients know that you have done and executed on these precautionary topics. So first you have to start telling them. And most of our customers start with an announcement on your website. You can add a banner, you can add text. If you work with an agency here or have somebody in-house to do this, this is really important because a lot of patients actually check that. And if you can, you should also create a sub-page on your website telling your patients about the safety protocols. You introduce that you're serious about this and that they can feel safe coming in. You can also see the Klara website messenger here on the right, bottom right, to have patients, to enable patients to reach out to you on your website, and you can start talking to them and tell them about the precautions you have. So this is kind of the website as a source of information for the patient that you've done all the precautions. The second one, proactive one, is send reassuring messages to your patients outlining the new safety protocols and again, inspiring confidence that you're maintaining a safe environment. And you can do this via email, or you can actually use Klara to send bulk SMS messages to your patients. And you can select a number of patients or basically create a list where you want to send these messages to. So that's also what we see a lot of customers doing. And third, make it personal. Don't forget, with clinical staff wearing masks for the duration of a whole visit, patients might feel a lack of connection with you and your staff. So some ideas how to combat this. And we see an interesting tactic some customers are actually using, especially for more serious procedures where the patient might be a little bit afraid or kind of hesitant to come in. So they do it the following way. The first part, they split the video visit or the visit into two parts. And the first part will be a video visit when the patient is actually still waiting in their car. And that can be done by you as a provider or by you as a staff member or front desk or MA. And that way you can connect without masks and establish that personal connection that's so often needed before certain medical procedures. And then you can invite them for the actual procedure to come in. So basically have the front desk experience transported to their car. And then secondly, when they are in the room with you, don't forget to engage them in conversation as it's appropriate, of course. If you know any kind of anecdotes you have on file from kind of past conversations you had with the patient, this is the good time to bring them up. Just don't forget they might perceive the visit to be a little bit more impersonal than in the regular kind of pre-pandemic times because of all the PPE gear and the masks.